How emotional intelligence impacts success. Have you ever felt like people don't like you, but you just can't seem to figure out why? It's one of those frustrating situations where you know you're doing your best, but there's this nagging feeling that something's off. You're kind, considerate, and polite, but it feels like you're constantly missing a deeper connection with the people around you. It leaves you questioning what went wrong, or worse, if there's something fundamentally wrong with you. You might try to make sense of it by replaying your interactions in your head, wondering if it was something you said or did. But sometimes the problem isn't in what you're doing, it's in the things you don't realize you're doing. The smallest of habits, attitudes, or patterns of behavior can have a massive impact on how people perceive you, and in turn, how they treat you. Sometimes these behaviors are so subtle that you don't even realize they're happening. So let's explore why certain people may harbor secret feelings of dislike toward you and how Stoic philosophy can guide you to understand, address, and transform those behaviors. By becoming more aware of the subtle ways in which our habits influence relationships, we can work to create more authentic, stronger, and more meaningful connections with others. And by the end of this article, you will not only understand why these issues arise, but also gain practical advice on how to improve the way you connect with people. Let's start with a simple yet incredibly common issue that often goes unnoticed: gossip. Reason 1: the unseen power of gossip. Gossip is one of the most damaging and underestimated behaviors in relationships. While it may seem harmless or even like a bonding activity among friends, gossip can have devastating effects on trust and connection. It's easy to slip into the habit of talking about others behind their backs, but over time, this behavior can severely impact your relationships. On the surface, gossip might appear to be a casual and fun way to share stories or vent frustrations, but it's more insidious than it seems. When you share information about others, especially negative information or personal matters, it reflects poorly on you. People may start to wonder if you're saying similar things about them when they're not around. As a result, gossip creates a toxic environment where others feel uncomfortable and unsafe around you. Even if you don't think that what you're saying is harmful, gossip can plant seeds of doubt in people's minds. It's one thing to share a funny story or talk about your own life, but when you turn the conversation toward other people's faults, mistakes, or shortcomings, it begins to paint you as someone who lacks loyalty and discretion. In the long run, people will begin to avoid you, not because they dislike you personally, but because they don't trust you to keep their secrets or respect their privacy. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius reminds us to pay attention to what you are doing and not be so focused on pointing out the flaws or mistakes of others. Instead of indulging in gossip, try to shift the focus of your conversations toward positive, uplifting discussions. Talk about the things that inspire you or encourage others. Share stories that celebrate the successes and strengths of the people around you. By doing this, you create an environment where people feel safe, respected, and valued. And in turn, those relationships will naturally flourish. Reason 2: the weight of unreliability. Reliability is the foundation of every healthy relationship. Whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, or a professional connection, people need to know they can depend on you. However, when you repeatedly break promises, cancel plans, last minute, or fail to follow through on commitments, you send a message that you don't value other people's time or needs. It's easy to dismiss small instances of unreliability, such as being a few minutes late or forgetting a detail here and there, but over time, these small actions add up and can leave others feeling frustrated and unimportant. Even if you have a valid excuse for why you weren't able to keep your word, the impact is the same. Others begin to see you as someone who can't be relied upon. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, famously said, "A promise made must be a promise kept." This principle is simple but powerful. When you make a commitment, whether it's something as small as showing up on time or as significant as following through on a personal promise, you are telling others that you respect them. Reliability builds trust, and trust is the bedrock of any strong relationship. When you fail to be reliable, you undermine the very foundation of your connections with others. To combat unreliability, start by being more intentional with your commitments. If you say you'll do something, make sure you follow through. If for some reason you can't fulfill your promise, communicate early and respectfully, offering an explanation and possibly an alternative. Small acts of reliability, like arriving on time, keeping promises, and remembering important details, will go a long way in demonstrating that you respect and value others. Reason 3: the subtle ego, trap of selfishness. Selfishness is another behavior that often goes unnoticed, especially when it's expressed in subtle ways. It's not always about being rude or inconsiderate. Sometimes, selfishness manifests in much more nuanced forms. For example, have you ever found yourself dominating a conversation, constantly steering the discussion back to your experiences or needs? Or perhaps you always choose what benefits you the most in any given situation without considering how others feel. While these actions may seem harmless, they can be interpreted as selfish by those around you. When you constantly prioritize your own needs over others, whether in conversations or decision making, you send the message that their needs don't matter. Over time, people may feel that they're not valued or that they're merely supporting characters in your story rather than equal participants in the relationship. Marcus Aurelius, one of the leading Stoic thinkers, emphasized the importance of considering the collective good. He wrote, "What's good for the collective is good for the individual." This means that when you act with humility and selflessness, you don't just benefit others, you also benefit yourself by strengthening your relationships and building a network of mutual support. Instead of focusing on what you want or need, try to take a step back and consider how your actions affect those around you. Practice active listening in conversations. Give others the chance to share their thoughts and experiences, and try to be more considerate of their needs and preferences. Small, selfless acts can go a long way in demonstrating that you value the people in your life, which will ultimately lead to deeper, more fulfilling connections. Reason 4: the invisible burden of seeking validation. Everyone has insecurities from time to time, and it's completely natural to seek reassurance or affirmation from the people in your life. However, constantly seeking validation from others can create an emotional burden for them, one that can slowly erode the quality of your relationships. When you rely too heavily on others to validate your worth or to give you constant reassurance, it can make your interactions feel imbalanced. You may unknowingly place an emotional responsibility on those around you to affirm your value. Over time, this can leave people feeling drained or overwhelmed by your need for validation. The more you rely on others to bolster your confidence, the more pressure you place on them. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus wrote, "Freedom is the pursuit of living according to your values, not seeking external validation." This principle is crucial in understanding how to build healthier relationships. When you constantly seek approval from others, you're not only making yourself vulnerable to their opinions, but also inadvertently putting them in a position where they must act as your emotional caretakers. To break this cycle, focus on building inner confidence by living according to your values and principles. Instead of seeking constant reassurance, remind yourself of your strengths, accomplishments, and worth. When you no longer rely on others to validate your existence, you free both yourself and those around you from the emotional burden that comes with seeking external approval. Reason 5: the erosion of gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools we have in nurturing strong, healthy relationships. It's simple, yet often overlooked. When you take people's efforts and kindness for granted, it can lead to a slow buildup of resentment. Everyone wants to feel appreciated, whether it's for something big, like a major sacrifice, or something small, like taking time out of their day to help you with a task. If you fail to acknowledge the things others do for you, they may begin to feel unimportant or unappreciated. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you rise in the morning, give thanks to the people in your life." Expressing gratitude, even for the small things, can go a long way in strengthening your relationships. Gratitude shows others that you see and appreciate their efforts and that their contributions matter to you. When was the last time you told someone how much you appreciated them? It's easy to get caught up in your own world, but taking a moment to express thanks for someone's time, support, or kindness can have a profound effect on your relationship. It doesn't have to be anything grand. Sometimes a simple thank you or a thoughtful gesture is all it takes to make someone feel valued. Reason 6: the emotional drain of constant complaining. Complaining can be a natural outlet for frustration, but when it becomes a habit, it can quickly drain the emotional energy of those around you. Everyone experiences challenges and struggles, but when you focus on the negative and constantly bring up your complaints, it can start to wear thin. People may feel as if they can't escape the negativity, and over time, they may begin to distance themselves to protect their own emotional well being. Stoicism teaches us that our emotions are shaped by our interpretations of events, not by the events themselves. Epictetus reminded us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This means that rather than dwelling on the negative aspects of any situation, we have the power to focus on the solutions, the positives, and what we can control. Instead of constantly complaining, try to shift the conversation to constructive dialogue. If you're dealing with a difficult situation, focus on finding solutions rather than fixating on the problem. Expressing gratitude for what you have and looking for opportunities to learn or grow from a situation will not only help you maintain a positive mindset, but will also attract people who are drawn to your positive energy. Reason 7: the silent strain of ignoring boundaries. Boundaries are an essential part of any healthy relationship, but when you fail to respect them, you can inadvertently damage your connection with others. Boundaries are not just physical, they also include emotional, mental, and social boundaries. Ignoring someone's boundaries, whether by showing up uninvited, asking for favors too frequently, or constantly overstepping personal space, can make others feel uncomfortable and disrespected. Respecting boundaries is not about being overly cautious or fearful of upsetting someone. It's about understanding that everyone has their own limits, and honoring those limits is a sign of respect. When you disregard boundaries, it sends the message that you prioritize your needs over the other person's comfort, which can lead to feelings of resentment and discomfort. To strengthen your relationships, take the time to understand and respect others' boundaries. Pay attention to their signals, both verbal and nonverbal, and be mindful of their needs. Show them that you value their space, time, and energy, and you'll build a foundation of trust and mutual respect. Reason 7: The silent strain of ignoring boundaries. Boundaries are vital in creating and maintaining healthy relationships. Whether it's your personal space, your time, or your emotional capacity, each of us has a certain threshold beyond which we feel uncomfortable or violated. Ignoring these boundaries, whether intentionally or not, can slowly undermine your relationships, causing them to deteriorate over time. What does it mean to respect boundaries? Respecting boundaries is about understanding that everyone has a right to their space, their emotions, and their time. It's about being mindful of when others need space, when they need time to recharge, and when they're simply not available. For example, if you frequently call or text someone during their work hours without regard for their schedule, this can feel like an intrusion. Likewise, if you expect people to always say yes to your requests or demands, you may unknowingly cross an emotional boundary. In relationships, boundaries often take on a different form. Emotional boundaries, for instance, are often difficult to establish and maintain. Sometimes people may feel overwhelmed by the intensity of others' emotions, especially if someone is consistently seeking emotional support without providing the same in return. If you're someone who tends to unload your emotions on others regularly without considering whether or not they have the capacity to handle it, you may be unintentionally burdening them. One of the most important aspects of respecting boundaries is learning to listen and to read nonverbal cues. People often give subtle signals when they are uncomfortable or when their boundaries have been crossed. Stoicism encourages us to pay close attention to our surroundings and to the behavior of others. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, frequently writes about the importance of being mindful of our actions and of considering the impact they have on others. To paraphrase, he suggests that by paying attention to what you do, you not only understand yourself better, but also create a more harmonious environment around you. In practical terms, respecting boundaries means asking for permission before doing something that might affect the other person. This simple act shows respect for their autonomy. Being aware of nonverbal cues. Pay attention to body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice to gauge comfort levels. Honoring people's time. If someone tells you they're busy or unavailable, respect that and don't take it personally. Acknowledging and accepting no as an answer. When someone sets a boundary, it's crucial to respect it without getting offended or insisting. When you actively respect others' boundaries, you show them that you value them not just as a friend, colleague, or partner, but as a unique individual with their own needs and limits. This fosters deeper, more authentic connections that can withstand the challenges life throws at them. Reason 8: the subtle harm of insecurity. Insecurity is a universal experience, yet it often manifests in ways that we don't realize are affecting others. Whether it's the constant need for reassurance, fear of rejection, or negative self talk, insecurity can seep into our relationships and cause them to become strained over time. The subtlety of insecurity is what makes it particularly dangerous, because those around you might not even recognize that it's an issue, or they may not know how to help. What does insecurity look like in relationships? It can appear in many forms: constantly seeking affirmation, engaging in self deprecating behavior, or doubting your worth in social situations. In many cases, insecurity stems from a lack of confidence or self esteem. And while it's natural to feel vulnerable sometimes, when insecurity becomes a habitual pattern, it can create emotional strain on the people you interact with. For instance, imagine you're in a group conversation and you often find yourself asking, "Do you like me?" or "Am I doing okay?" These constant requests for reassurance not only put pressure on the other person, but also inadvertently shift the focus of the conversation to your own emotional needs. This can lead others to feel emotionally drained as they constantly feel like they have to manage your emotional state rather than being able to engage in a balanced, reciprocal interaction. How does Stoicism address insecurity? Stoic philosophers such as Epictetus emphasize the importance of developing inner strength and self reliance. Epictetus advised his followers to focus on what they can control, their thoughts, actions, and reactions, rather than relying on external validation. By doing so, you can build a foundation of self confidence that doesn't depend on the opinions or approval of others. In his writings, Epictetus famously states, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This quote is a powerful reminder that while we can't always control how others behave or what they think of us, we can control how we respond to those situations. The more you work on aligning your actions with your personal values, the more confident you will feel in your own worth, reducing your dependence on external validation. In practical terms, here's how you can reduce the impact of insecurity on your relationships. Focus on personal growth. Invest in your own development, whether through learning new skills, pursuing hobbies, or working on your emotional resilience. This not only builds confidence, but also enriches your interactions with others. Affirm your own worth. Instead of seeking constant reassurance from others, remind yourself of your strengths and positive attributes. Practice self compassion and acknowledge your achievements, no matter how small they may seem. Be mindful of your emotional state. If you catch yourself seeking approval from others, pause and reflect. Ask yourself whether this desire for validation is rooted in your insecurities or whether it's a genuine need for connection. When you are less reliant on others for your emotional stability, your relationships become more balanced, authentic, and fulfilling. Reason 9: The mask of perfectionism. Perfectionism is often celebrated in modern culture, especially in the professional world. People who are perfectionists are often praised for their dedication and high standards. However, perfectionism can actually be quite isolating and detrimental to relationships. It may seem like the desire to do things perfectly is a positive trait, but when you set impossibly high standards for yourself and others, it can create feelings of inadequacy, frustration, and distance. How does perfectionism affect relationships? When you expect perfection from others, you inadvertently put them in a position where they feel like they are constantly falling short. This can lead to resentment as people feel they can never meet your expectations. Perfectionism can also cause you to become overly critical of others, always pointing out flaws and mistakes. Imagine you're in a work environment where you constantly point out minor errors in a colleague's report or always strive for the perfect result. Even though your intentions might be to help or improve things, your relentless drive for perfection can make others feel inadequate or unappreciated. This is particularly true if they feel that no matter how hard they try, it's never good enough. Stoicism offers a balanced perspective on perfectionism. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the idea that we are all part of a greater whole, and perfection is not the goal of life. Instead, life is about contributing what we can, doing our best, and accepting that mistakes and imperfections are part of the human experience. In his meditations, Marcus reminds us that what is in our power is the effort, not the outcome. In other words, we can always strive to do our best, but we must let go of the need for perfection in everything we do. How to reduce perfectionism in your relationships. Accept mistakes as a part of life. Rather than demanding perfection from yourself and others, allow for mistakes and imperfections. They are part of the learning process and can provide valuable opportunities for growth. Focus on progress, not perfection. Shift your mindset from seeking flawless outcomes to appreciating the effort and improvement that comes from working together. Show appreciation for others' contributions. Recognize the value in others' work, even if it's not perfect. Encouraging and supporting others, rather than criticizing them for their mistakes, builds trust and strengthens bonds. By embracing imperfection, you can create more understanding and forgiving relationships where people feel safe to be themselves without the fear of being judged or criticized. Reason 10: The harm of being judgmental. Finally, being judgmental is a behavior that can quietly destroy relationships without you even realizing it. We all make judgments about others, but when we constantly judge or criticize people, it creates an atmosphere of discomfort and defensiveness. People don't want to feel like they're constantly under scrutiny or that their every move is being judged. How does judgment impact relationships? Judgment often comes across as superiority or a lack of empathy. If you're constantly making snap judgments about people based on their appearance, actions, or beliefs, it can alienate those around you. They may feel as though they have to walk on eggshells, fearing that they'll be judged or criticized for something they do or say. Stoicism teaches that we should not be quick to judge others. Marcus Aurelius suggests that instead of focusing on the faults of others, we should focus on improving ourselves and leading by example. By accepting the flaws and imperfections of others, we can foster a more compassionate and understanding environment. How to combat judgmental behavior. Practice empathy. Try to understand people's situations, struggles, and perspectives before jumping to conclusions. Everyone is fighting their own battles, and sometimes what may seem like a flaw is actually a result of external circumstances. Adopt a mindset of acceptance. Understand that no one is perfect, and everyone is entitled to their own opinions and ways of doing things. Instead of focusing on criticism, try to see the positives in others. Reflect on your own judgments. Pay attention to moments when you find yourself making quick judgments. Take a moment to pause and reconsider why you feel that way. Are you projecting your own insecurities onto others? Being less judgmental allows you to build a more accepting and supportive network of people who feel comfortable being themselves around you.